Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. Should we give the FA Cup 7 or even 8 on the magic scale? Not quite Paul Daniels, but great Suprendo vibes at least. Bottom of League One, Port Vale in vintage kit beat Sunderland on a sandy old pitch to get to the quarterfinals for the first time since 1954. Newcastle fan Ben Waine with the crucial goal. Championship Southampton win at Craven Cottage, Fulham making 9 changes, not quite sure why. Elsewhere, Mansfield push Arsenal, Chelsea win at Wrexham, Man City are better than Newcastle, Liverpool beat Wolves and Leeds eased past Norwich. Also today, we haven't had a pod since Tottenham 1, Crystal Palace 3, the day everyone realised Spurs are getting relegated. Still sounds weird to say it out loud. In Fitbar, Celtic win the Cup quarter-final at Ibrox. Cue some pretty tense scenes afterwards. The toughest of us wear blue lycra balaclavas. Then some EFL, 5 wins in a row for Coventry, with Middlesbrough just ahead of the chasing pack. 2 wins in a row for Oxford means it's very tight at the bottom. In League One, Lincoln win at Cardiff to go top. There's a 5-way bun fight at the top of League Two and a very stressful time at the bottom. We'll answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Sanny Rudravajhala, hello.
Hello.
And from Not the Top 20, George Elek. All right, George?
Hello, Max.
Let's start then at Vale Park. It is still Vale Park, isn't it? It's to me anyway. Port Vale 1, Sunderland 0. Port Vale getting to the quarterfinals for the first time in decades and decades. Sanny, you were there. And sort of quite nice, almost all the ingredients for an upset.
Yeah, I think it was all the ingredients because, Port Vale bottom of League One, no one expected them to be here in the first place. The match against Bristol City, which got rearranged because the pitch was deemed unplayable, that got played on Tuesday. I was at that game as well. And when it got to extra time, I think everyone in the stadium's heart just sank. We all just wanted this game to end one way or another. So to get through that, Ben Waine was a scorer there. And then to take it to Sunderland in the way they did was brilliant. I spoke to Reggie Slabreese afterwards, and he said how the pitch was a leveler, which is, it wasn't level, it was definitely bobbly. But I don't, and this is kind of a wider point really, because this also feeds into the Mansfield game I was at as well, because he basically said that kind of made things even, and I'm not sure that Premier League players on a pitch that's a bit patchy and bobbly then means that you're the same standards as League One, which is kind of where he was coming with. Only 2 changes from that Sunderland side, so it was a full strength, pretty much team. And yeah, Port Vale were fantastic. They'd only had a few days to turn it around as far as getting the tickets sold and everything. I think they were still selling tickets on the website for the Peterborough game that was supposed to be that day up until the Thursday or something. So they were really kind of playing catch up with it. And, a brilliant atmosphere. And you know what it's like when you're not one of those games, there'll be youngsters there. It's the first ever time. And what an experience they've got. And, those fair weather fans might be thinking, I'm going to go to Port Vale more often. And that's kind of what football's all about. So, yeah, fantastic times.
Yeah, look, Ben Waine scored the winner, and all these stories. Newcastle fan, I was expecting this broad Geordie accent, and he's actually a Kiwi. But you, Sanny, showed him Alan Shearer's tweet when he did the kind of Shearer celebration in front of the Sunderland fans.
Yeah, that was really fun, actually. It wasn't your usual press conference fare. Port Vale had already decided, right, we're just going to have a bum fight on the sidelines at full time with a huddle around each of the managers and stuff. So that was quite fun. So straight after talking to Labrise, just barged in, pushed John Cross out the way, who'd already pushed me out the way earlier, which is,
okay.
John, you don't need to do that. But got in with Ben Waine, and in the middle of all these questions. And so 5 Live had tweeted the picture of him doing the Shearer celebration, and Shearer had quote tweeted it and put his hand in the air. So Ben, have you seen this? And he's like, oh my God, amazing. He kind of lost for words and said he was too young to watch Shearer play, but watches his YouTube videos all the time, and asked him had he planned that before? And yes, he had. And then I've tweeted that, and Shearer's liked that. So do I then show Ben Waine Shearer liking the fact that he's liked his reaction? Absolutely. And then what does Ben Waine do? And this could go on, because I'm at Port Vale this evening ahead of the FA Cup draw. So I could actually do that. We could keep this infinite content loop going, or just reaction to each other. Where does it end?
That's what. That is what football is now. Barry, are you mortified that Sunderland are out?
No, they should be embarrassed. I had a bad feeling about this one, I won't lie, mainly because a Mackem friend of mine here in London went to the game, and any time he goes to a Sunderland away game, they get beaten. He's a real Jonah. But I don't think Sunderland can offer any excuses. Port Vale deserved to win. They wanted it more, as they say. I mean, I wouldn't say it was anywhere near a full strength Sunderland team because there's so many players out injured, but it was the best team they had available, and it should have been more than enough to see off a team at the bottom of League One, and it wasn't. I thoroughly enjoyed Melker Elborg's headed save from that sensational Luke O'Nien back pass, where he sprinted backwards 20 metres to launch this back pass, to try and lob his own goalkeeper. Brilliant save from Melberg. Obviously couldn't catch the ball, so he headed it over the bar while backpedaling furiously. And the same fella, Elborg, was... I don't think I'd have had any complaints if he'd been sent off for that, bringing down George Hall outside the penalty area. There probably wasn't a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity because he was going wide of the goal. But I don't think he could have been complained, and it would have been a big problem for Sunderland if he'd been sent off because he's a reserve goalkeeper. He's only a kid, and Robin Roofs is currently out with a hamstring injury, so if he was suspended, I don't know who's next to step up. But no complaints here at all, but it's embarrassing for Sunderland, but Sunderland are a club who are well used to embarrassment. And, just another one to add to the list.
George? I liked how the Port Vale official Twitter account, when describing the moment where Elborg could have been sent off after Hall rounded him and was kind of cleaned out, said that Hall looked to have a tap in, when in reality he had taken it kind of towards the corner flag on the edge of the area. But it's an interesting debate where it feels like this happens the whole time, where this conversation around what is an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Is it an obvious opportunity where you're going to get a shot away at a goal? Because if it is, then even though it's not that likely to go in, it was definitely a red card. Or is it a shot that is actually kind of likely to go in when you have it? In which case, it's probably not a red card. It feels like no one really knows still. Obvious, is that the opportunity to shoot, or is that the opportunity to score? If it's the former, then it probably should have been a red. Also, credit to Waine, I think, for the header itself. Like, it was a looping ball that he managed to get some kind of real power behind to get into the top corner. It's a great story, this, because even though Port Vale are rooted to the bottom of League One, John Brady's come in, and as best as you can when you come into a club who are detached kind of around the turn of the year, he's brought in a real good feeling there. And normally when a manager comes in and they improve results, they improve things, but they still go down, the finger's still pointed at them for not saving them. With Brady, that won't be the case. This FA Cup run is testament to that. The only concerning thing for them is that they already have only played 32 games, which is the fewest in League One this season. There are some teams in the league that played 36, and now they're going to have their game over Easter, or I think both their games over Easter postponed, because the next round of the FA Cup is over Easter weekend, but on the Saturday and Sunday, when obviously EFL teams play on the Friday and the Monday. So they're going to suddenly have about 7 games in hand to play in the last kind of 6 weeks of the season. So, I hope their players are in what's quite a small squad. They're going to be have a lot asked of them physically.
Just on the VAR call, quite a surreal experience. So the Elborg takes out Hall. The whole of Vale Park is suddenly chanting for VAR. Like, that's no EFL crowd ever. Then the decision goes against them. Everyone's like, "Fuck VAR!" Right? Go back. That's how fickle we are. Fuck it straight away. And then I've got people like in the by the press box shouting like towards me and the other journos like, this VAR nonsense. What you're doing? Like, it's got nothing to do with me, pal. I'm just sat here like row ZZ. Like, it's nothing on me. But yeah, just going back to the Port Vale story, by the way. Give a bit, and our good friend at the Eye, Daniel Story, when doing his 72, did a great piece on it, actually, and the manager mentioned it as well. Carol Shanahan, the owner of Port Vale, who kind of came in and essentially saved the club, and it's kind of changed the culture of what Port Vale is and how they do things, and it's really small things. All the staff are encouraged to all have their lunch together at 12:30, and if you're not there, somebody might knock on your door and check if you're okay. Whenever there's a Port Vale fan who passes away, and the club has to be informed, and if the cortege goes past the stadium, all the staff and the players will try and come out and just give their condolences. So little things like that. They did a lot in COVID as well. So there's a real community hub there, and I hope that story doesn't get lost. And on the kit, by the way, it's the 150th anniversary year for Port Vale, and that kit is modelled on the 1954 team that got to the semi-finals. So there's a little echoes of where they're up to. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it was a lovely kit, wasn't it? Craven Cottage then, Fulham 0, Southampton 1. George, I don't know how much of a surprise this is given how many changes Fulham made and the form that Southampton are in.
Yeah, I mean, it was still kind of in terms of sometimes there are these games where they're upsets. When you look at the bookmakers' odds, actually the team who is perceived to be the kind of worst team are often kind of on a level playing field in terms of probability. This wasn't that. Fulham were heavy odds on favourites to win this game. At kickoff, I think Fulham fans will be pretty confused and bemused and frustrated as to why, in a season where they're not really threatened by relegation and any kind of ambitions to finish in a high European spot are gone, why they made 9 changes to their first team. And why the substitutions when they were made didn't really look to be, Marco Silva's spoken about the importance of these games and about the FA Cup for their season, but the actions themselves didn't really echo that. Just one change made up until the 89th minute, which was Iwobi coming on. Josh King and Raul Jimenez being introduced in the 89th and 90th. Like it all seemed a bit strange, really. Like, massive credit to Southampton, who Tonda Eckert came in to replace Will Still, had a really good first run, and then results tailed off massively. But in the last 5-6 weeks, they've been up there with the best teams in the Championship, and they were good here. Finazaz did well to win the penalty, dispatched brilliantly. Such a sweet strike from Ross Stewart, who's obviously had some serious injury issues himself, and if he can be fit for the last couple of months of the season, will be a big help to Southampton, who have put themselves in the last 8 for the FA Cup, but also on the fringes of the playoffs, which didn't look like it was going to be likely at the beginning of the season. So yeah, Eckert's doing a very good job, and this was again, you always wonder with cup runs how it's going to impact league campaigns because of fixture congestion, but it does feel like for Southampton, continuing their good form in the league by going away from home to a Premier League club and winning will only help them.
Yeah, I mean, Marco Silva said it was a very, very, very bad afternoon. And you can understand why Chelsea made loads of changes, right? They're still in, 4 competitions, or qualifying for the Champions League. You can understand why Man City did. You can't understand why Fulham would make this many changes. Barry, the almost as fun as Luke O'Nine's tremendous attempt to score an own goal was the Fulham goal that was disallowed by Jared Gillett, probably correctly, but involving the Southampton keeper absolutely belting it at his own teammate, Ryan Manning, who went down like platoon, but sort of fair enough, because he probably was not expecting that ball to be rifled into his midrib.
Yeah, Daniel Peretz threw the ball out to take a goal kick. It was still moving when he took the goal kick and flattened Ryan Manning, hitting him in the back. I think Jared Gillett thought he had hit Manning in the head, which is why he blew his whistle to stop play. He hadn't hit him in the head, so as the ball ricocheted off his back, Fulham scored. So it was the correct decision to rule out the goal because the ball was moving when the goalkeeper took the goal kick, but it was disallowed probably for the wrong reason because Gillett thought Manning had been struck in the head by this black thunderbolt. The thing about the changes, I can totally understand why Fulham fans would be frustrated by that. But Leeds made wholesale changes and won. It's fine to make those changes if you win. But if you don't, you end up looking at an absolute chump.
Sure, but
I guess
Leeds
Marco Silva just
but
doesn't care about the FA Cup, or he doesn't think Fulham have any chance of winning it. So
yeah, maybe. But Leeds are, still in danger of going down. Right? There's a reason why. Okay,
I'm not
Fulham's
criticising Leeds for making changes, but I'm just saying it's fine to do that if you win.
Of course. But all the other teams making changes in the Premier League, I think makes sense because they're fighting for something else. Whereas I don't think Fulham are, really. Anyway, Chelsea made lots of changes. They won at Wrexham. Rory says, will Hollywood versus VAR at the Ravecourse leave Reynolds and McElhenney wondering if they even want promotion to the Premier League? VAR is not good for the narrative. Mark says, am I the only one delighted to see Wrexham out? It's a glorified vanity project. It's interesting, Sanny, the journey of people finding the Wrexham story beautiful and then hating it as they actually get nearer the Premier League and being good. But like this was a really good game, wasn't it?
This was a great game, and just on that, the Hollywood journey. What you got to remember is the people who are involved at Wrexham. Besides the owners, they're just like, I'll give you one example.
People. They're just like normal people, Sammy.
I'll give you
normal, real people like us, like you and me, just off the street.
Right, I'll give you one example. So, Colin is the head of media at Wrexham, and he does a great job. He joined Wrexham out of university. I think he might have still been a student as a volunteer running the media in the National League, in the doldrums. Like, right, it was just his club, so he went and joined them. And he's come on this journey with the club, right? And now he's, overseeing a championship operation and the nation's media descending pre-match as I was a part of them in this tiny little room. And, and that's the club. The people who were at Wrexham 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, are the same people. So as much as the narrative's there, and I know exactly the sort of people that people are getting annoyed at because, even like last season, I was there for Five Live. I'm trying to get to my accreditation, and it coincidentally as the players are coming through, and there's all these people like trying to get an autograph or whatever. But it's like a different sort of fan who would like almost having a go at me for trying to get past them. Like, look, I don't want to take your place to stand near a fence to see the players come through and give Ollie Rathbone a cheer or whatever. I just want to get to the ground. Like, it was
You're
like
really getting it in the neck, Sanny, aren't you? You've got the Port Vale fans furious about VAR. You've got these fans. Maybe it's just you.
So maybe it is with my little wheelie trolley. Those people and the online maybe and the Americanization part of Wrexham is quite irritating. But the actual people who are there, who have been there, are all great, and it's a great story. I mean, the game itself was fantastic, and we saw Sam Smith with that wonderful goal, like a brilliant ball from the back, like perfectly flighted ball over the top. Again, our good friend Sanchez, Robert Sanchez, getting himself in all sorts of trouble. I mean, we've seen an iteration of this goal like several times, haven't we? Or several times where he's got himself in trouble. But yeah, overall, like, just a great game. And I think, just like with VAR in Port Vale, I think that should have been a red, by the way, on the goalie. Like, VAR reared its head in a way that I don't think we really needed. I don't necessarily disagree with the decisions and the red card in the Wrexham game. My issue with VAR in particular, as well as hating it, is the fact that you watch replays that are slowed down. So you're artificially changing the perception that the referee saw in the first place. Because in real time, I don't think Dobson looks that bad. I think it's fine. It's yellow. And you start slowing it down. It's knee on knee. And we're into this, we're into this again. So it was a great game, but as soon as Wrexham went down to 10 and it went to extra time, you only knew there was going to be one team. And by the way, I'll get this point in now. The tin pot goals that Wrexham have are a real issue. You cannot have Sports Centre 3G football goals that you can wheel on and off in the Championship at this level. Half the ground didn't know it was in, did they? With Garnaccio's goal. It was absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, the one of the press boxes is right at the far end where that goal was, like where Talk Sport was. Because I listened to the game and then watched the game as I was coming back, got her back home from the Mansfield game. And the Talk Sport would have been at the far end of that ground, and I'm certain whoever's on commentary would have been like, oh, it's gone wide or it's hit the post. But it would have been a horrible moment for them on comms. But yeah, horrible goals.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that point. It's so weird that they have those goals anyway, and it must be pretty embarrassing for, on the biggest stage, everyone tuning in, a crucial goal in an FA Cup game, and the goal goes in and no one in the stadium, but also no one watching on TV at home knows the ball's gone in. Like, it's one of the weirdest, like, aesthetic. And you got Garnacho basically like turning around and saying, did anyone else see that go in, or is it just me? And then there's the cheer. Like, it's bizarre. It's a funny one with VAR. Like, I hate VAR, and if it's ever introduced into the EFL, I'll have to rethink my career. But it's funny how in this instance, the two big VAR decisions, the red card for Dobson and Brunt's goal being disallowed for offside, and I still kind of think if Brunt had left that, it maybe was going into the far post anyway. They're both the right decision. and I still hate it, and I still wish it didn't exist. Like I don't understand how anyone, even real time, like Dobson's foul is like the things you judge a foul on are like excessive force. Obviously, like he absolutely flew in. There was no attempt to play the ball. I think I can see why it wasn't given live because, you know, maybe the occasion or whatever. But when you see it back, even if it's not slowed down, I think it's obvious. It's very cynical and has excessive force needed to clear that threshold, and it is offside. But even so, like we don't need it. Like we've got a referee. Let him police it. He's going to make mistakes, just like VAR make mistakes. And it's a shame that what was a brilliant cup tie was decided by that, even if the decisions were right.
I think the Dobson red, it probably should have been a red, but the ref, it was his opinion that it was a bookable offence, and then he was overruled by someone else's opinion. So why is the second person's opinion more valid than the ref's? I don't know. But anyway, just about the Wrexham, sort of the backlash against them. Their squad was assembled for between 40 and 50 million quid. They have players in that squad from their academy, players who come in for Blackburn, Bristol City, Charlton, Bolton, Hull, Rotherham, Reading, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Ipswich, Leicester. Their most expensive signing was Nathan Broadhead, 10 million quid. He was on the bench. I think Kiefer Moore is their highest earner on 30 grand a week, and he earns twice as much as the next highest earners. So it's not like they're hosing money around Man City, Chelsea style. And I don't have a problem. They seem to be doing good work in the community, unlike other clubs that have been the subject of takeovers from very wealthy foreigners.
I think there are kind of two ways of looking at it. Like the spend compared to the rest of the Championship, who haven't got parachute payments, and especially compared to any club that was in the National League 3 seasons ago, is absurd. Like it is, it's crazy what they've been able to do. The fee for Broadhead, the wages they can spend on Kiefer Moore and even Conor Cody when he came in. Like clubs that don't have the revenue streams that you get given if you have either a set out 40,000 a week or you have parachute payments in the Premier League can't even get anywhere near that. I support a team that came up the season before, Wrexham, and our record signing is I think £2.5 million, and none of our players will earn even a third of or half of what Moore's on. So there's that regard. But then I do also think you're right, there is an element where they are doing things the right way in terms of an investment in the local community. If you're a Wrexham fan, you're being taken on an incredible journey. And I think Phil Parkinson, it kind of gets lost because of the story and because of the spend. But Parkinson's doing an absolutely unbelievable job. I assume there'll probably be a furore if he's put up for manager of the season or whatever in the Championship in a couple of weeks, because people will say, well, he's when you got that money, it doesn't matter. It's still not easy. It's still not normal to be able to take a team who just finished second in League One and take them into the top six and possibly within touching distance of the Premier League. Like I know Sunderland did that in their first season up, but that's a completely different profile of club. So it's unbelievable what he's doing. And again, they gave a great account of themselves against Chelsea.
Yeah, we should say that well done to Chelsea because they won, and Liam Rosenior made 9 changes, and he's getting a tune out of this team, and they're still fighting on 4 fronts, aren't they? 3. They're not in the Carabao Cup final. 3 fronts. If they're still in the Champions League, I should know these things. 3. Let's go to Mansfield. Mansfield won Arsenal 2. Sanny, I don't know where you weren't. You seem to have been at every game so far. You were at this one. How was it?
I have watched too much football this weekend. I've been at so many grounds and so many games. Yes, I was at this one. Again, it was great. I'll try not to repeat the vibe of Port Vale. It was a great. So I did my teacher training in Mansfield. I was a science teacher before I quit my job and retrained into this. So I taught in the ex-mining towns or mining villages of Clipston, Garibaldi School, which nearly made me quit teaching altogether. Did not take the biscuits, or it did. I don't know. You're the one for the puns, Max. And Selston. So I know exactly what these communities are like. And you drive through, and if you're not familiar with Mansfield and where it is, you'll see the abandoned, shuttered mines. You'll see the the wheels that have been taken down and they're put at the entrance to any town and stuff. So you go through, like, there's England flags all on all the lampposts and stuff. Like, these are forgotten towns. Like, that's not make any bones about it. There's a reason politically why they are where they are. There's a reason why who they've elected in Ashfield in the past, for example, is who they have. So, and this is where a football club is so, like, crucial, to give everyone a focal point, regardless of how things are going. And that's where the Radfords coming in, John and Carolyn, who I was live with in a car park and on Sky Sports News, were saying that element was a huge part of why they kind of wanted to get involved, because John, the name of the stadium's after his company and stuff, so they've invested there and bought in, and slowly, like Port Vale, like well, not quite Wrexham, but they have invested in trying to build it up. So this was a huge moment for them and a culmination of all that hard work. Again, 10,000 there. Lots who wouldn't have been there. So the press box was so full, by the way, and there's so many London journos and stuff, all looking like lost little lambs walking around. Like, oh, is this the way? I was on a row behind the press box, just next to all like the posh seats, which are just like seats, next to people who are definitely very much out of their comfort zone from North London, which is very, very entertaining for me. So the game itself was great. Mansfield really kind of took it to Arsenal and gave a great account of themselves. I'll let everyone else come in, but I've got much more to say. I can keep rambling on, but yeah, it was a great spectacle, and again, a huge moment for Mansfield. And let's see if they can kick on in the league as well.
Yeah, and look, Barry, they had the moment, right? You want that as a lower league fan. It's just a moment where you take the lead or you equalise or whatever, and they had that.
Yeah, Will Evans came on as a sub at half-time. Took advantage of a poor pass from Marley Salmon and scored an equaliser for Mansfield. He has previous in the FA Cup. He scored one for Newport County against Manchester United a few years ago. And I thought Mansfield were terrific, to be honest. They were playing a below-strength Arsenal side, obviously, but I think in the build-up to the game, Nigel Clough was very much saying that, this is a kind of Brucey bonus for us. Reading on Tuesday night is far more important. But after the game, he when he was getting the condescending pats on the head and about how brave his players' performance was, he seemed to think, we possibly could have done better in this game. And I think he's right. Arsenal were far from their best, but obviously should have been more than good enough to win this game. And they did win it, but Mansfield gave them plenty of problems.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Arsenal goals were very much, we're better at this than you.
Yeah.
We'll just score really good goals. There you go. And there were two brilliant goals from Madueke and Eze, weren't they? But yeah, so Arsenal through.
We'd be remiss not to mention Max Dowman. I know he talks about him right at the start of the season, how well he did against Leeds for Arsenal, but he was on a complete other level. You talk about players who can make the difference there. He's still only 16, 6 foot, youngest ever starter, I think, for Arsenal in FA Cup, and just so good. I mean, if you can do it on that pitch, if you can do it when you've got, players literally twice his age kicking the shit out of him, and he's able to drop a shoulder, beat a man, using the ball in the right areas, using his strength, ghosting past players. In an era where we're talking about nobody can beat a man anymore, this kid is really something special. Like, I know it's only League One he was playing against, but what we saw there was just absolutely phenomenal. And Arsenal got a real prospect, not even prospect, he's already there. And I think what's also great is, like Marley Salmon, he again was only 16. Unlike, say, when we had Michael Owen playing for Liverpool, we've had youngsters play way too many games too quickly. We've seen what happens. It looks like Arsenal doing the right thing with him and just building up gently and not getting too overexposed. But he really shone at Field Mill, and I think if you hadn't seen him play, you don't know so much about him. Max Dowman, one to watch because he's absolutely phenomenal.
The quadruple alive for us, or the quintuple if that includes Spurs getting relegated for Arsenal fans. That'll do for part one. Part two, we'll do the rest of the FA Cup and a bit of Spurs too. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Newcastle 1, Man City 3. What do you make of this, George?
Yeah, a decent Cup tie, Newcastle obviously taking the lead relatively early before kind of City ground them down as they tend to do at the moment. Savinho's goal was one of the weirdest goals I think I've ever seen, maybe. Like, it's absolutely extraordinary what he did. With the cross coming in, initially when you watch it live, you think he must have been unsighted and it must have kind of just hit him as he stood still. But the more replays, the more obvious it becomes that he basically knew the ball was coming towards his left foot. And rather than actually try and kick the ball, he just let the ball hit him on the leg and then kind of dribble over the line. It was
so you think it's just the most? You think it's pure nonchalance? I think
it's deliberate. Yeah.
Wow.
Because you can see the angle from behind, and he almost does kind of shift his left leg just a tiny bit, just to kind of like angle the foot. Okay. Ridiculous. Like, just very weird. I was a bit poorly over the weekend and thought I was in some kind of fever dream when it happened. It was
in Pro Evo terms, by the way. That's super cancel for anyone who knows. It's L1 R1 L2 R2, and the player stops doing anything and it just hits them.
Okay, interesting.
If you know your old school Pro Evo,
you couldn't do that on. Can't do that on sensible soccer.
I've got the controller right here somewhere.
But look, I'm a big fan of any goal where the ball goes in incredibly slowly. I'm such a huge fan of those goals, and it was like that, wasn't it? It gave the Newcastle players enough chance to sort of get back, but not enough. But look, beyond that, George, City were really good. They made 10 changes, but were still really good.
Yeah, Marmoush looking really lively. A kind of good poacher's goal to open, and then a brilliant strike from the edge of the area to score the second to make the game safe. And the way that City controlled, at times this season, I think City have been different in the way that they've played out of possession, where we've seen them against teams let them have a lot more of the ball and press a bit kind of less intently or with less intensity. But here they were brilliant. They snapped into everything. Even when they're 3-1 up, they still dominated the ball. It kind of felt like City iterations of the past, and that is going to be a concern, I guess, with a big part to play in the Premier League title race and also the Champions League. So, and the FA Cup. So, it could still be a very successful season for Man City, and it does feel like they've got the strength and depth between now and the end of the season to mount that challenge.
Yeah, and probably not a successful season for Newcastle, Barry. They do have Barcelona. They're still in the Champions League. But it's just no shame, right? Like, the depth of their squad, the amount of games they've played, sort of felt quite some sympathy for them at the weekend.
They've played 47 games this season. I wouldn't imagine anyone's played more. The gulf in class here was just so obvious after the first half hour. Newcastle clearly don't have the same strength and depth as Man City. It's a big bone of contention with Newcastle fans that they're not allowed to spend all this money the Saudi PIF have. And this shows that maybe they have a point. They only had 15 touches in the opposition box compared to City's 64 in theirs. Nick Voltemade in midfield again, looking like a fish out of water. And
big fish,
very big permed fish.
My favourite kind of fish, obviously. Yeah. What is the market? What's the market fish of the day? It's the the big permed Voltemada on a bed of.
I don't think he even has a perm, but he just kind of looks like he should have one to make him even more conspicuous in his midfield role. So they were just outclassed. But that's the 5th time they've played City this season. City have won 4 of those games. And they're just much better than Newcastle. I'd be interested to see how Newcastle fare against Barcelona over 2 legs. I think it could be a bloodbath, but who knows? They seem to be able to rise themselves for those big European games.
At Molineux on Friday night, Liverpool won 3-1 at Wolves. All I could think, Andy Robertson scored a lovely goal, opening the scoring. Set up one was what a bullet he dodged, because wasn't it a Liverpool? Someone else was injured, so they didn't let him go to Spurs. And you just think, wow, lucky for you. Sonny, on a few people saying that, Arne Slot needs the FA Cup or needs something to keep his job, which does feel... I still think it feels hard. I still feel like you get a season's grace for winning the league. I don't know. I don't know if you think that is sort of fair enough when you're at this level, you're at the elite level and you don't win anything, that if you have a poor season, that's it.
I think there are clubs big enough with broad enough shoulders to be able to rail against that sort of clamour. Liverpool are one, Man United famously are the other. And I think, given especially, out of all the games to for that conversation to be around, of course, Diogo Jota's death and that of his brother, this game was marked again, but with marks in remembrance during the game for him, obviously as a Wolves player and a former Liverpool player. And that, continues to affect the players. So I do think, it's really hard to say, because I'm sure at the start of the season, everyone was like, you get this season written off. I know you've said that as well, Max. And then it happens, and you're like, right, well, you're going to stick with that. But I think it does mean he's on an incredibly short leash for next season. And did he need to win the FA Cup? Yeah, not a lot to keep his job. I don't think so. But certainly as something to kind of almost, mark the season and think, draw a line under everything as much as one can do. That would be a great way to do it. And, I'm sure there'll be celebrations very poignant if they were to win the FA Cup. But they have no right to do so. But I think Slot's okay. I honestly do. I don't think you're doing a voice note anytime soon, Max.
No, I hope so. Leeds beat Norwich 3-0. They were very, very good, Leeds, in this game. Longstaff's goal is absolutely brilliant. The first touch and turn and finish was absolutely superb. And I have no questions on this game unless someone has an interesting thing to say on it. Barry, have you got anything to add?
No, Longstaff's goal was the highlight. Leeds made wholesale changes, still won, and nothing else to add, Max, particularly.
That's fine. Yes, Sanny?
Just one thing. I mean, Daniel Farke's really upset, in his pre-match build-up that he was unable to be on the sidelines for this because of his red card in the previous game, and he said he's got an unblemished record, and that really kind of hurt him. He's quite a sensitive person. I spend a lot of contractually obliged time with him, with his one-to-one interviews, and yeah, that really did hurt him. A special moment for him, kind of taken away. And just on that, just going back to the Newcastle City game, we probably should have mentioned as well that Pep Guardiola essentially squaring up to the fourth official is completely beyond the pale, and I hope he gets the requisite reprimand, because that isn't appropriate. In the same way, Daniel Farke maybe should have watched himself a little bit more, checked himself. He's reflected on that. You cannot just put your head up to a referee almost, and think you can. There's no reason for that, no matter how emotional you are.
Yes, Pep said, we have the record of the manager with the most yellow cards. I want all the records, and now I have it. 2-game ban now. I will go on holiday the next 2 games. I mean, I wouldn't open with it, Pep, but, for your tight 10 at the Hen and Chickens. Anyway, JS Dow says, just Spurs, please. It was Thursday night, which is a long time ago in football, but we haven't done a pod since. They lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace. 1-0 up, Van der Ven gets sent off. It's such a silly red card. And then they let in 3 before half-time. George, how much are you looking forward to covering Spurs in great detail on Not the Top 20 next season?
I think that hinges on whether or not my team Oxford stay up, because I'm quite looking forward to taking the 2 stops in the overground to get to an away game. But it could be Leyton Orient otherwise, if not. It's funny with us, because often it's these transient big teams that come down, pay us no attention on the podcast. It's the likes of Sunderland and Leeds who come down and stay down that we really like. I can't imagine too many Spurs fans are going to engage with League Two when they're down in the Championship. But no, it'll be fun. I mean, and it feels like it's possible, and it's kind of bordering on likely. We're probably one more defeat and terrible performance away from it becoming a more likely than not kind of proposition. It just feels like the appointment of Igor Tudor dates very, very strangely. Not necessarily in terms of what he's done as a player or anything like that. More just bringing in someone who's never managed England before, who is coming in, who's played like exclusively a back 3 in his managerial career, and is doing that now for a squad that was built to play with a back 4. Surely that's the first thing you look at with an interim manager. Like, do you play a system that we have recruited to play? And if the answer is no, then they should be off the desk like immediately. And yet here we are with a group of players being shoehorned into a system that doesn't really work. Players who seemingly want out as quickly as they possibly can, who a horrendous disciplinary record as well. Post-match interviews where the interim manager's saying exactly what the fans don't really want to hear. It's just like a total and utter mess. And I'm really intrigued, because my assumption is, if Spurs go down, Igor Tudor will not be their manager on the day where they get relegated. I'd be amazed if he was. So who's it going to be? Because they've gone after someone who's managed Juventus this season, like a bit of a name from Europe, and it wouldn't have worked out. Like, I mean, do they go like proper, like, get the book of Spurs legends out and see if we can get someone in to come and
Gary Mabbott? Gary Mabbott could do it. I mean, I've mentioned Harry. He is 79, Harry Redknapp. I mean, Barry, do you think they've got, I mean, they need Atleti away like a hole in the head. Like, absolute disaster that, isn't it? Do they let Igor Tudor lose to Atleti, lose to Liverpool on Sunday, and then lose to Atleti again, and then change? Because then they've got Forest at home, Sunderland away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, on what is perhaps the biggest month in the history of their Premier League life.
You're making it sound like Tudor has the option to lose those games. Well, a friend of mine who's a cabbie had Joe Cole in his cab on Saturday morning. Joe was bringing his boy to football, a match, I think, playing in it. And Joe told my mate that they've made approaches to Harry with a view to succeeding Igor. Now, I don't know.
Did Harry say, I'll wait till Cheltenham's over?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Now, obviously, Harry is busy this week because he has a runner in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. The Jukebox Man, which is well fancied. I think it got nodded on the line a few years ago at Cheltenham in a different race. Looked home and hose, got caught on the line. That may be a metaphor in there, but I don't know. But I don't know what's... I mean, that match against Crystal Palace was objectively hilarious from the moment when Ismaila Sarr was offside because he has a nose and a face. And then Spurs going ahead and immediately self-imploding. I think every single person on the planet with an interest in football who doesn't support Spurs is desperate to see them get relegated because it would just be funny. And as you've said before, Max, there is no team. They may not be bottom of the league, but they are at the moment the worst team in the league by some distance, I think. And it's difficult to see where the next point is coming from.
Yeah. And also, George, I mean, obviously their squad would look so different next season if they were in the Championship, but I know the playoffs are increasing to 8 teams, but I don't think they just go and walk that division. Like, I just think I just don't think they'd find it easy. But like, you know better than me.
No, I think you're probably right. I mean, it's impossible to say without knowing who will still be there. But, normally teams that come down from the Premier League to the Championship have done it before and kind of understand what is needed. Albeit Leicester did very well when they came down and appointed Maresca and hired a group of players that did very well and won the league. But this is more similar in my mind to when you've got big teams that come down from the Championship to League One, because this is a case like Sunderland, like Ipswich, teams who basically never thought that this was going to happen. And that would be the stakes here. And normally when that happens, teams that come down from the Championship to League One tend to stay down there for a bit because they are complacent and they don't understand what they need to do, and they make terrible decisions when it comes to recruitment of managers and players and the rest of it. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Spurs are like that. I mean, they'd probably be the first ever team to be odds-on favourites to win a league before a ball's kicked, because obviously just it would be ridiculous in terms of the quality of the players that they have. And even if they sell most of them, which they would have to do, the ones that would be left over would still be very good. There's an interesting subplot that Oxford have Jamie Donnelly on loan with an option to buy him for £4 million. And I love the idea that we would stay up, they would come down, and then we would have to buy one of the players that they'd like to keep for the Championship off them for a fee that was already agreed in January. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I do kind of, for the first time this weekend, think that there's got to be a pretty big chance it's going to happen.
Yeah. Just on, I mean, George, you've summed up tactically, like exactly where Tudor's kind of gone wrong with Spurs, but just the cultural thing, and I know maybe done to death, I don't know, but Michael Bridge, the Sky Sports news reporter, was standing outside the stadium, and behind him you could see the Spurs cockerel on one side, and what could you see behind his other shoulder in the equal sizing on the stadium is the NFL badge. This is a club that's culture has got so diverted away from the actual football that you're not surprised, really. You know, you met an anime Dominic Solanke. Like, what are they playing at? Spend your energy on the team. So when you're talking about someone like Harry, Kesey, he's talked about bringing Glenn Hoddle back, call him a grandfather. But if you did bring back a grandfather, old school manager, and he says, right, knock all this other content stuff on the head, right? We're going to train, we're going to go home, we're going to go, whatever. That might just be the sort of cultural shift you might need when you've got a bunch of players who are so busy, like, wondering about being filmed for their entrance, into this training ground and little content bits in here. Like, focus on the football, because you're going to go down into the Championship, and it's an absolute disgrace if it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, worth mentioning Adam Wharton's assists, the Adam Wharton klaxon, get him on the plane. Just such a joy to watch. Glenn says, is it worth having away fans at the Old Firm if it's going to put players, staff and police in harm's way? Yeah, normally in league games, it's much lower away fans at Ibrox or Celtic Park because it was the Scottish Cup quarter-final. There were many more Celtic fans at Ibrox. It was goalless after extra time. Celtic won 4-2 on penalties. And then afterwards, the scenes turned pretty ugly. I mean, Celtic fans came on in celebration, probably inadvisable, and then a few Rangers fans you put a picture of the Blue Man group in the WhatsApp group, Barry, and it did look like that, didn't it? You are like, oh mate, what are you guys doing? They sort of wandered on to be like, come on, who's with us? Looked around and no one had gone with them. And eventually a lot of Rangers fans came on and they were sort of throwing fireworks at the Celtic fans. I think some were coming the other way, and a few of the players or staff had to be sort of ushered off the pitch pretty quickly. The police said afterwards the behaviour of a number of supporters at the game was shameful. It must be condemned by everyone involved in football and wider society. A number of arrests have been made. Police Scotland will now work with both clubs and the SFA to carry out a robust investigation following the scenes on the pitch at the conclusion of the match. Officers and stewards were faced with extreme hostility and violence over a sustained period, with many individuals having armed themselves with items clearly intended to cause harm. Officers and members of the public have been injured. Barry, it just seems unsurprising what happened there, and maybe it's too soon to apportion blame. I wouldn't run on the pitch if I was a Celtic fan there, and I wouldn't put a blue balaclava on and run on the pitch if I was a Rangers fan there. No, I don't have one in my dressing up box.
Quite apart from the fact that it's not a particularly fetching piece of headwear, I would hope you wouldn't wear a blue balaclava. Look, there's a lot of blame to go around, and obviously, as is always the case, there's plenty of finger pointing and rancour and whataboutery and belligerent sanctimony from both sets of supporters, each claiming that the other side's shameful behaviour was more shameful than our shameful behaviour. I think it's a matter of fact that a lot of Celtic fans jibbed in for free into the Broomloan stand after storming the turnstiles. They spilled onto the pitch after the winning penalty. They vandalised their end of the ground. There was 7,500 of them there, which is clearly too many if they can't be trusted to behave themselves. And I think the Rangers fans who came on the pitch didn't cover themselves in glory either. The club say that they'll work with the police to identify these culprits, but I think both clubs are guilty of indulging the hooligan, undesirable aspects of their fan bases, and they should have a long, hard look at themselves and the nonsense they put up with from these sets of fans and who were misbehaving yesterday.
It was disappointing as well that both Martin O'Neill and Danny Rule in the post-match interviews didn't really condemn the action. Like, Martin O'Neill was very much like, couldn't really see it, blah, blah, blah. You could just blank say, neither set of fans should be coming on the pitch. This isn't right. You can say that. You can say something clear, even if you didn't see the details. So that would have been something. And just a wider point, like, every match-going fan will recognise the sort of young fan, the ones who are jibbing in through the Broomloan stand. Like, there are some fans who genuinely don't know how to behave at football, some younger fans, because you think, COVID pandemic, that was 5 years ago? So there are 15-year-old kids who, in the formative time where they could have been learning about what's appropriate and what's not in a football stadium, didn't get any of that experience because they were 10, 11, those years were lost to them. And there is a section of a match-going fan base, youngsters, who don't know where the line is and I keep going past it. And it's at every game, every ground has this set of fans. They'll be in all black, but they're all like little street urchins. They're all malnourished, but they're all there trying to be hard. And this is, I think, an extreme example of that. I don't think it's all that, but I think there is an element of youngsters who don't know how to behave, who've missed the educational period where they could have learned how to behave, and just taking things far too far in the first place anyway.
That's 5 years where it's don't get a lycra balaclava in the colours of your team and put it on your head at any point during the fixture. Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll do some EFL. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So look, from the EFL, before we get into the results, the idea there'll be 2 more playoff places. So it'll go down to 8th place. What did you make of that?
I don't love it myself. It feels like the playoffs are pretty good as they are. I don't really see why there's any need or desire to change them. Having said that, the clubs voted almost unanimously in favour of the change. I can see why the clubs would do that. It gives them more of an opportunity to finish in the playoffs and therefore a bit higher chance of promotion. It also probably benefits the teams that finish 3rd and 4th more because they have more of an advantage when it comes to the knockout between the 4 teams beneath them. They play fewer games, they have more chance of getting through to the final. I just don't really see the point. It just it feels like in football and in everything in sport there are always people who want to change things, and the playoffs in themselves, there's like a sporting integrity argument about this where it's like, well, why should the team who finished 8th have a chance of getting promoted? In the same way, why should a team who finished 6th have a chance of getting promoted compared to a team in 3rd? Like the playoffs are inherently pretty stupid if you're going to judge if you want the best teams to get promoted, but they're incredible theatre and incredible drama. But they are that now. And I also do wonder if there could be more dead rubbers towards the end of seasons where teams, especially the Championship, where there's often quite a big gap between the top 2 or 3 and the rest because of parachute payments. And we could have more teams like Sunderland last season who basically knew in early April that they were going to finish somewhere in the top 6. So they basically down tools, played a weakened team, lost 4 games in a row. If you're broadening the bracket of teams that will finish in the playoffs, then there's more chance that there'll be more games like that towards the end of campaigns where that's where sporting integrity is really bad, where if you're a team battling relegation and one of you is playing against a side in 4th or 5th who basically know where they're going to finish, and therefore play a weakened team ahead of the playoffs, it could get quite messy there. So I don't really see why it's been done. I can understand why it was proposed and why the clubs want it, but I'm not sure it's something that fans necessarily want.
But that's funny, George, because the EFL's argument is the converse, right?
I know.
They argue that there'll be fewer dead rubbers in the middle because there's more teams who can get the 8th place, but I haven't thought of it like that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, it'll change season on season. It's like when they started introducing 3rd teams qualifying from World Cup groups, the argument was that there'd be fewer dead rubbers. It's clearly meant there are more dead rubbers. So yeah, the proof will be in the pudding, but I think we'll see, especially on final day, we will see more games where one team has less to play for, or even more games where one team will be incentivised to play weakened teams because they know where they're going to finish.
At the table then, Coventry top, 74 points from 36 games, 5 points clear of Middlesbrough, who have 69 points. Millwall in 3rd have 65, Ipswich 64, Hull have 60, and Wrexham, the final playoff place, have 57. Look, Coventry, last time we were on, George, had gone on this sort of mini blip. We were starting to think, could the wheels fall off? Then they've won 5 in a row. So they've done absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, the blip was just a blip, and they put it right in like the incredibly high pressure Monday night game a few weeks ago where they hosted Middlesbrough at a time where they'd been taken off their perch, and they put in a brilliant display in a 3-1 win, and then to follow that up with 4 consecutive victories off the back of it, 5 wins, and they're 5 points clear of Borough now, and they're 9 points clear of Millwall in 3rd. Like it's a credit to Lampard, Edwards and their staff for overseeing this, because it was looking really precarious for a moment, and not just in terms of the title, but also the top two because of Ipswich being in decent form. But they're now, they're back in good form. Haji Wright was on a kind of barren goal-scoring run. He's now scoring freely, including the hat-trick against Borough and a goal in the 2-0 win over Bristol City last weekend too. So, it feels like it would be some collapse from here, and the chances are we're going to see Coventry as a Premier League side for the first time in a long time next season.
Middlesbrough second. That was a big win yesterday against QPR, Sanny. Hayden Hackney scored a lovely goal in that one. We expect them to... 4 points isn't huge with 10 games to go, but they are the second best team in this division.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lovely moment as well, you might have seen on the socials, of Neil Warnock, now the Torquay United interim manager, of course, in the EFL Sky studio, talking to Hayden Hackney after the match and saying, well done. Look forward to playing in the Premier League, and I gave you your debut. And Hackney was like, he's very kind of unassuming. He was like, not sure I was good enough to get my debut under you. I was a bit young, which is quite nice to hear. He's excellent, and he'll be in the Premier League no matter what. And Middlesbrough have been fantastic. Chasing them is Millwall, who I saw the other week, and they are excellent, actually. Really, really, really good. They've had a lot of injuries. I did a little social media video and said they hadn't had too many, and I was kind of referring to the core, and all these Millwall fans were like, we had 12 injuries earlier in the season. But the centre halves, Cooper and Kramer at the back, have been really solid. Coburn just takes a lot of hits, and Demi Aziz, who you recall was great at Reading, has been excellent for Millwall. Is that one player who can unlock a defence? But I think they haven't quite got enough to catch Middlesbrough, but they did just dispatch Hull City. And going back to the whole teams that aren't great but are in the playoffs, there's quite a few of them now, so maybe that does kind of give the argument to expand it if they're all kind of middling. But Millwall are definitely the best of the rest, and I don't think they're going to catch Borough though. Yeah,
although that whole game, I wouldn't. Dispatch makes it sound straightforward. Hull seemed to hit the bar about 100 times, and then had this goal disallowed, and I couldn't quite work out what it was for, George.
Yeah, it was. Hull all season have been this team who have defied underlying numbers, and anyone who's watched them, they seem to win games very clinical in front of goal, concede loads of chances, and don't concede very many compared to the opposition. But this was their whole season in reverse, where suddenly they were the team creating loads. They were the team who couldn't force the ball in the back of the net, and it was the opposition who were clinical against them. But on the balance of play, Hull were very unlucky not to go ahead in this game. Were very unlucky not to kind of take a pretty good lead by the time they were pegged back to 2-1. Panda, who's been such a massive player for them this season, their goalkeeper, who's made so many big saves to keep them in games or win them games. He should have done better with a cross that was then prodded home by Ivanovic. But they had a lot of chances and weren't able to convert them, which will be damaging for them. But Millwall's season just continues to be phenomenal, and Alex Neil's doing an absolutely incredible job there in terms of not only getting them to where they are, but it feels like they're kind of improving week by week now. And they seem to, they lost to Portsmouth at home a couple of weeks ago and bounced back straight away with a victory. It doesn't seem like when they're beaten, it doesn't seem to hurt them too much. And they're going to be. They're going to keep Borough honest, I'm sure of that.
George, Oxford have won 2 in a row. No one else in the bottom six has won any of the last 3 games. So now Sheffield Wednesday down, obviously. Then Oxford have 35, Leicester 35, West Brom 36, Blackburn 39, Portsmouth 40. So that has made it really interesting down there.
Yeah, it has done. 2 really big wins for Oxford. I think Oxford's last 6 goals have all come from set pieces, directly or indirectly. 1 against Stoke, 2 against West Brom, and then all 3 here against Preston on Friday night. Which, for a team that are going to struggle to create loads in open play, is going to be really important. It was set-piece goals that for the most part, kept Oxford up last season under Rowett, with Leicester really struggling, albeit with a good point away from home at Ipswich, with Baggy struggling, albeit with a good point away from home against Sheffield United. But the big game for Oxford now comes on Wednesday night, where we host Blackburn. I will be there. And that just feels huge because Blackburn are struggling a bit. There's also a really nice kind of subplot here where Michael O'Neill is a Northern Ireland manager. And we're heading into an international break for hopefully 2 of Northern Ireland's biggest ever games in terms of their World Cup qualification playoffs. And Oxford have loads of Northern Ireland internationals. You've got Kieran Brown, Jamie Donnelly, Jamie McDonnell, Brodie Spencer. So it's going to be a funny kind of caveat here where Oxford players will be playing in front of their international manager as they try and force their way into the squad. O'Neill himself is going to know them incredibly well and their games very well. We'll also probably want them not to get injured. It's just quite a weird situation to have going into what is just a huge game for both teams.
We're basically out of time, so I should just say, look at the League One and League Two table, and you will know who's where. That seems like we haven't done them justice, but well done to Lincoln, who won at Cardiff. So they are now top of League One, and Cambridge third. Bromley have 5 points clear at the top of League Two. They played a game more, and it is very tight there, and very tight at the bottom of League Two. Normally, 2 teams are gone, but Crawley. But Harrogate have 27, Newport 28, Barrow 28, and Crawley 29. So incredibly tight. The Lionesses beat Iceland 2-0, the World Cup qualifying group. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly is out tomorrow, so listen to that. But that's pretty much all we have time for. Unless, Barry, you have anything salient you want to finish with on this episode?
Well, I think we forgot to mention, in all our righteous indignation over the behaviour of Celtic and Rangers fans, that St Mirren, Dunfermline and Falkirk also join Celtic in the semi-finals. So it's Celtic, St Mirren and Dunfermline Athletic against Falkirk. That's the draw.
Right, so St Mirren could win 2 cups this season, if I remember the League Cup correctly. Okay, thank you, Barry. And that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sanny.
Cheers, thank you. I'm off to Port Vale now. We didn't mention West Ham Brentford tonight, the FA Cup game that nobody really cares about. But yeah, looking forward to that one and the draw.
Okay, I presume we'll be there and you'll be at every game and from now until the rest of time. Thanks, George.
Thanks, Max.
Cheers, Barry.